All right, let's go ahead and bring this meeting of Templeton Community Services District Board of Directors to order. Today is Tuesday, December 16th, and it's 6:30 p.m. Roll call, please.
Director Spardonish.
Here.
Logan.
Here.
Mortensen.
Here.
Peterson.
Here.
And Tyra.
Here.
Okay, all four board members are present, so we have a quorum. Pledge of allegiance, please stand for.
Five.
We have five board
That's-
members.
that's what
After 9 years.
I pledge allegiance. I pledge
The flag.
flag.
United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please have some wine here. All right, order of business, do any of the board members would like to change the order of business? Good. Special reports, let's start with
Meeting Sandra Raza, Sheriff's Office Commander for Sheriff's Office North Station. Stats for last month or the following for the year. We're at 304 calls total. Last year, in November, we were at 321. Current reports for the month were 42, where last year we had 46. We took one report for assault and battery, one for disturbance. We had 3 reports taken for burglaries. 2 of those were actually shoplifting at stores. 2 reports for thefts. 1 was for an unlocked vehicle. And the second occurrence was an item that was taken from a yard. We had 7 reports taken for vandalism. 4 of these occurrences consisted of the front door or garage doors being kicked and causing damage. What was interesting in some of these, they were on one, they actually rang like the doorbell, but they had a hoodie on, and I mean, I'm assuming they're kids, but so yeah, a lot of calls for vandalism, but it was for the big doors and front doors and garage doors. We had 3 calls for trespassing, no scam calls. We had 16 calls for service. 1 report was taken. Several of the calls were mental health related calls, I noticed, and the others were of suspicious vehicles. I don't know if it's because maybe people are visiting or parties or out of the area, but I noticed that several of them were just reports saying that a vehicle was not from the area and appeared suspicious, but nothing really turned out because of it. So I don't know if that's just because of the holidays and people are busy. And then I also noticed that the school resource officer was proactive in going to the schools when the schools were being released. That's good. We don't normally report, but I noticed it running the stats. Any questions for me?
Any questions?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I just have a quick question. I get 2-3 phone calls a week saying it's my grandson. Should I report those or just, I mean, I got one today and I said, well, I'm your grandmother, not broke. So
And these are for,
they're what they call and say they're my grandson, but they're not and they want money.
oh, yes. So, you know, if you sometimes check into our social media, what we try to do is pay attention to like a trend. You know, like they're claiming to be a family member. Most notably, we don't like the trends where they say they're law enforcement.
Okay,
And, you know, sometimes we're on social media, our names, they claim to be us, right? So in this case, you know, I'll leave it at your discretion if you're not at a loss. But if you think like, hey, this is, you know, they actually had my information, because we want to make sure you're not a victim of identity theft. And that's really what we're looking for is, you know, the trend, because they're going to keep trying. And if we can warn the community, then we will. But
I assumed that was the case, that I haven't
Yeah.
reported it before.
yeah. Good for you for hanging up on them, or I mean, grandpa. Anything else?
Any questions from public?
Thank you.
Okay, CHP.
Hi, good evening. My name is Darren Janusz. I'm the commander for Templeton CHP. I'm going to report on our statistics from November 2025 compared to same period 2024. Were 14 crashes investigated, 9 were on the highway, 5 county roads. 12 of those were property damage only, 2 injury related and 2 DUI collisions of the 2, 1 each on the highway and 1 on county roads. No fatalities. Enforcement contacts, 97 of those 61 citations were issued, 39 on the highway, 22 on county roads. 25 of those were for speeding violations, 0 for over 100 miles per hour, which is a great thing to see. And there were 15 DUI arrests. That's a 36% increase. 8 on highway roads or 8 on the highway and 7 on county roads. Our community contacts log shows that our patrol officers were in the Templeton community 58 times in the month of November. So I'm pleased to see that nearly twice a day. Any questions for me?
Thank you. Any questions? Public, any questions? Money? All right, awesome, thank you. Thank you. And then finally, Templeton Unified School District, is it Sheriff? All right, please. Press the button.
I'm Cheryl Parks. I'm a trustee for the school district. And I'm actually replacing Jennifer Greniger as the representative. We swapped places last week when we did our organizational meeting. So she'll be my backup. So if I can't make it, she'll be here. And if she can't make it to tag, I'll tag team with her. The last week, like I said, we had our organizational meeting. Ted DeVost is our president again for this coming year. He and Janelle Armette swapped places, so she's our clerk for the next year. Friday is a minimum day district-wide, so school will be out Friday and we'll resume on January 5th. So watch out for the little gremlins running around town. So at our meeting last week, we had our financial report, our first interim financial report, which takes us through October. The district is doing well, so we're quite pleased. We actually ended up with more revenue than we had anticipated. So that's a good thing. Next month, we'll start working on our budget for the 26-27 school year, and it'll take us into June to get that adopted. So, and then we continue to work on the bond. At the November meeting, and I'm guessing that Jennifer reported this last month, they had a discussion. I actually wasn't there, but they were doing a discussion with the architect on the swapping of the middle school and Vineyard Elementary School. That's still an ongoing thing. They had some drawings to show that it was possible to do that. And if we move Vineyard out to the middle school, we would be able to keep all of the little 3rd through 5th graders on the upper part of the campus and not have them going up and down stairs. So that was a huge thing for us. The next step is the architects are working on 3D models and better estimates as to what the cost is going to be. And then at that point, we'll make a decision as to whether we are actually going to swap those schools. So kind of where we're at right now. Any questions?
Thank you. Any questions? Public, any questions? Great. Well, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Okay, this is the public comments section. Now members of public may address the board on any items of interest within subject matter jurisdiction of the board, but not on the agenda today. In compliance with the Brown Act, the board cannot discuss or act on the items not on the agenda. Any public comments?
Yeah,
Go ahead, please, if you don't mind going to the podium, introducing yourself.
Yeah, send me a couple minutes here. My name is Michael Silva. Get started with the read off. Good to go. I'm not familiar with the format. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. Yeah, start. No problem.
Yes, I just wrote this thing. Good evening, board members. Thank you for the opportunity to speak regarding the 2 fire apparatus engineer positions currently funded by the SAFER grant. First, I wanted to establish my connection to this community. I'm no longer a resident here, but I moved to Paso. Templeton is where I lived and went to high school for some time now. This community safety is deeply important to me. My professional background gives me a unique perspective on this. I work as a fire apparatus engineer for CAL FIRE here in North County. And I'm also a former CSD fire department operator. I urge you guys to fully fund both engineer positions post SAFER grant expiration to protect public safety and the consistency of our fire response. The staffing proposal I believe being discussed involves eliminating these engineer roles and reverting to less experienced driver operators. I need to stress that the difference between these two roles is monumental and is defined by training and crew cohesiveness. A driver operator typically only requires a California firefighter endorsement, a necessary but basic foundation. The consistency and effectiveness of an engine company are undermined when the same crew members are not working together every shift to build that essential trust and routine. In contrast, a full-time engineer requires significantly more training, driver operator 1A and 1B, just to name a few. This extensive certification creates an expert capable of managing complex water supply, pump operations, and make time-critical decisions under extreme pressure. I've personally been in both roles. When I worked as a driver operator for California Pines CSD Fire Department, I was at a one-station CSD Fire Department extremely similar to Templeton, had minimal training at that time, and I can tell you honestly, I didn't know how to perform as many critical tasks as I needed to when they came up. My experience now as an engineer is completely different. The training was the distinction between simply driving a rig and possessing the comprehensive expertise required to successfully manage a dynamic fire scene. This training provides the crew with full operational ability immediately upon arrival. The risk of relying on less trained staff is real. You cannot replace the expertise and training continuity of an engineer, especially during large-scale incidents like feeding green fire, which demand high-level operational skill. These engineer positions are not optional; they're essential for maintaining consistency, effectiveness, and safety of a 24/7 emergency response crew here in Templeton. Wrapping up, as someone who served in both positions, I understand the constraints of a similar CSD model, but I strongly urge the board to prioritize the protection and expertise of this community by voting to fully fund both fire apparatus engineer positions. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, appreciate it. Any other public comment? And we do have, oh, sorry, go ahead.
My name's Yvette, and I used to live here in Templeton. And I came to support the firefighters as well. Give me 1 second. Two full-time fire engineer positions are currently funded through the SAFER grant that expires in February. If the Templeton Community Service District Board does not vote to permanently fund these positions, they will be eliminated. This will force the department to rely heavily on part-time or less experienced staffing, reducing the consistency, safety, and effectiveness of emergency response. Fire engineers are highly trained professionals who operate fire engines, manage water supply, and make critical split-second decisions during emergencies. Experience in these roles matters. Losing these positions could risk the firefighters and the public, and it lowers the level of fire protection the community receives. The July 2025 Templeton Feed and Grain fire demonstrated how essential these experienced engineers are during major incidents. Moving away from this level of staffing places the community at greater risk during future emergencies. Templeton deserves a reliable, professional, and well-staffed emergency services. Thank you.
Any other public comments? All right, and we also have several other public comments. They have sent us letters regarding this matter for fully funding the two fire engineer positions. So we'll just put these on the record and read these out.
No,
Okay.
they're actually posted online.
They're posted online. Okay, wonderful. Thank you very much. All right, no other public comments. We move to the next item, consent agenda. We have 4 items on the consent agenda. We have the minutes from November 18th, 2025. We have the treasurer's report from October 2025. We also have resolution number 17-2025, which is CAL FIRE BFC program grant agreement and budget amendment. And our last item on the consent agenda is resolution number 18-2025, which is a wage schedule update. Do any of the board member would like to pull these items for discussion? No. Anybody in public would like to pull these items for discussion? Okay, I'll bring it back to board. If there are no further comments, I'll entertain a motion to for these consent agenda items.
I'll move that the board approve consent agenda item A, the minutes of the November 18th, 2025 meeting. Item B, the treasurer's report for the period ending October 2025. And resolution number 17-2025, the CAL FIRE VFC program grant agreement and budget amendment. And item D, resolution number 18-2025, the wage salary update.
Do I have a second?
So,
Okay, we have a second. Roll call, please.
Directors Logan,
Aye.
Peterson,
yes.
Mortensen,
All right.
Tyrone,
Yes.
and Pardonish.
Aye. Okay, motion passes 5-0. Right, this time. Okay, thank you. Business item, let's go. We have the audit report.
Yes. So, good evening. Tonight, the board will be listening to a presentation from Jared Solmonson from NIGRO and NIGRO for the audit ending June 30th, 2025. At the conclusion of the presentation, I ask that the board accept the audit report by board motion. And good evening, Jared.
Good evening, Natalie. How are you?
Good, thank you.
I'm going to share my screen here if I may. Okay, can we see the PDF on the screen okay? All right. Good evening, Board of Directors and district staff. As Natalie mentioned, my name is Jared Solmonson. I am an audit partner with NIGRO and NIGRO, and we conducted the June 30th, 2025 financial audit. I'm going to give a brief presentation here, and then I'll be happy to answer any questions. I'm going to begin with the scope of the audit work. We were engaged to perform audit test work of the entity's annual financial statements and report. We were engaged to report on the entity's internal control over financial reporting and on compliance in accordance with government auditing standards. Our responsibility as auditors, in accordance with professional standards, was one, to form and express an opinion about whether the annual financial statement results that have been prepared by management are presented fairly in all material respects in accordance with accounting principles generally accepted in the United States of America. Our responsibility is to plan and perform the audit to obtain reasonable assurance, that's reasonable, not absolute assurance, about whether the annual financial statements are free of material misstatements. During the course of the audit, we are to consider the entity's internal controls and segregations of duties over accounting procedures and financial reporting as we perform our test work. Such considerations were solely for the purpose of determining our audit procedures and not to provide any assurance concerning internal controls. So we evaluate the internal controls to make sure the information provided to us can be relied upon, but we do not issue an opinion on internal controls. Our opinion is on the financial statements as a whole. Moving down to the audit results, we issued an unmodified opinion on the annual financial statements. That is a clean opinion. We don't want any modifications to the opinion language. In our opinion, the annual financial statements are fairly presented in all material respects. The adopted significant accounting policies have been consistently applied. Estimates are considered reasonable for depreciation, pension, and OPEB expenses, as well as the lease transactions. New GASB pronouncements were adopted during the year. We had GASB 101 and 102 were both implemented this year. AUC 265, communicating internal control related matters identified in an audit. No material issues arose to be reported to the governing board or to management during the course of the audit. Any questions we had were clarified, answered by Natalie, and clarified to our satisfaction. And how do we make you better? Districts have to get an audit here in California, but we like to, we do about 50 to 60 of these a year. So we see the good, the bad, and the ugly. So we try to share best practices with our clients. So discuss with Natalie about the implementation of GASB, the new GASBs, before we got the trial balance, and we're able to work through those and just kind of what we were seeing through your peer districts. Moving to the next page here, I'm going to just briefly go over, start with the governmental funds, and then we'll move on to the business type funds, just kind of how the numbers came to rest at the end of the year here. So here with the governmental funds, operating revenues, general fund charges for services, very steady, just minor increases there, not a whole lot of charge for services in that fund. Parks charges for services down about 38,000 from the prior year, 390,000 in 2025 versus about 430,000 in 2024. Fire charges for services shows 238,000 in 2025 and 0 in 2024. That kind of has to do with a reclassification just for financial reporting in the current year. There's some questions from district staff and Natalie, kind of how the numbers tied out. So we moved them around a little bit just to make things flow a little bit better. They actually came out of other revenues. So in the prior year down here, you'll see that there's a decrease this year, and that's just due to the reclassification. Fire measure A parcel tax up about 8,000, very steady year to year. Fire grants and capital impact fees down about 157,000. Those are going to vary year to year. Parks grants and capital impact fees down about 27,000. Again, those vary. And then finally, we got the transfer in here to the Parks Fund from solid waste. Moving down to non-operating revenues, property taxes very steady, about an $8,500 decrease from 24 to 25. Investment earnings very solid, down about 19,000. Probably just has to do with timing of cash, average daily balance. And then other revenues, as I mentioned, there was some reclassification here. So we saw a $105,000 decrease year over year. That brings us to total revenues of $3.8 million in 2025 versus a little over 3.9 in 2024. So overall, very steady revenues, very comparable. Moving down to operating expenses. General fund shows 0 expenses in 2025 versus a $348,000 in prior year. Again, just like the fire charge for services, this has to do with the reclassification just for financial reporting. Due to the transfer, the annual allocation of expenses, that number was showing negative. So for financial reporting, we moved some of that actually up to other revenues just to make it present better. Fire expenses down about 442,000 year over year, 1.9 in 2025 versus 2.4 in 2024. Parks expenses down about 164,000 overall, just under $1 million in 2025 versus a little over 1.1 in 2024. Streetlights very steady, about 44,000 in both years, and then community facilities expenses again very steady, about 3,000 in both years. Operating expenses before depreciation, down almost $1 million, 2.9 in 2025 versus 3.9 in 2024. Depreciation expense, very steady, just a little over 200,000 in both years. Brings us to total expenses of 3.1 in 2025 versus 4.1 approximately in 2024. So that's a decrease of about 950,000 overall. That brings us to change in revenues and expenses. This is the change in net position. So you can think of this as your bottom line, kind of the net income if you're thinking of like a for-profit company. It's there's a 672,000 increase in net position in the governmental funds in 2025 versus a 190,000 decrease in 2024. Okay, moving down here, cash and investments. The district in its governmental funds ended with 6.4 million in 2025 versus almost 6.9 million in 2024. That's a decrease of 424,000. Down here at the bottom is a quick summary of how we got from kind of the bottom line there, the changes in revenues, expenses of 672,000 to the change in cash. So we have a change in capital expense. If you see above here, that's capital asset additions. The district had little under 1.2 million in capital additions during the year. That's cash spent on construction, equipment, things of those nature. And that's taken with depreciation expense to get us that change in capital expense. And then just caught up in there are some other accruals. We had the change in compensated absences of 59,000, change in OPEB and pension liabilities there. That gets us to a change in cash and investments of 437,000. It's off about 12,000 from the number above there. There's just some other minor accruals caught up in that. And lastly, here on the governmental funds, I just want to comment on the investment earnings. We do just kind of a quick calculation. We take your last year's balance, add it to this year's balance, divide it by 2, just to kind of give an average cash balance, and then we take that against the investment earnings seen above there. So very solid 4.74. With interest rates the way they are, we kind of been auditing to about a 5% return on investment in cash. So it's good cash management by the district there. Moving on to the next page here, we're going to discuss the enterprise funds. Operating revenues, water, charges for services, 3.1 million in 2025 versus a little over 3 million in 2024. That's about a $100,000 increase. Sewer charges, down about 44,000 from 3 million approximately in 2024 to 2,970,000 in 2025. So pretty steady there across the board. Drainage charges for services, very minor, $42 change there, so very steady. And then solid waste franchise fees saw an increase of about 23,000 there year over year. Moving to the non-operating revenues here, we had some minor grants in 2024 and none in 2025. Investment earnings here, 1.4 million for 2025. So again, very solid with the cash management, investment management. And we had a 1.1, almost 1.2 in investment earnings in 2024 for the enterprise funds. And then some other revenues, just some minor miscellaneous things there, down about 22,000. Those vary year to year. And then capital contributions, 454,000 versus 70 in 2024. And sewer capital contributions, 138,000 versus 164,000 in the prior year. So again, those just vary depending on development and any prepaid capacity fees that come into the district. That brings us to operating expenses before depreciation for the enterprise funds, about 3.5 million in both years, down about 63,000, excuse me, in 2025, but again, very steady overall. Depreciation expense up about 29,000. As more capital assets come online, you'll see that number probably increasing slightly until some of those items become fully depreciated. And then just a few non-operating expenses here. We had interest expense, about 168,000 versus 161,000 in the prior year. And then the annual solid waste franchise fee transfer to the parks fund there. Brings us to total expenses of 4.8 million, 73,000 in 25 versus 4.8 and 76,000 in 2024. Very steady overall, only a $3,500 increase or decrease there. Moving down here to the change in revenues and expenses, that is your increase in net position. Very solid year, 3.5 million increase, 3.572,000 versus almost 2.9 in the prior year. So that's an increase of 680,000 year over year. And then again, we just have some miscellaneous items here. Capital outlay, district spent 585,000 on capital additions during the year. That's cash out the door. Taken with depreciation expense, which is non-cash, gives a change in capital expense of 409,000. Debt principal paid on the debt, 157,000 in 2025 versus 147,000 in the prior year. Just like your mortgage, as the years go by, you're going to see that principal paid increase year over year. Finally, the district finished the year with a little over 30 million in cash and investments in the enterprise funds, and that's versus 24.6 million in the prior year. That's an increase of a little more than 5.4 million. And then again, just like the prior page here, the quick summary just shows how we got from the increase in net position to the increase in cash. We take the change in capital expense, subtract the debt service, and then changes in accruals and assets and liabilities gives us the exact change there. Investment earnings portfolio, 5.21. So if you take that with the 4.75 from the governmental funds, that gives us right about 5% overall. So Again, very good cash management from the district. That includes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions about the presentation or about the audit report.
Thank you. Any questions from the board? Report.
Thank you for the presentation. I do have one question that kind of caught my eye on page 4, where you're talking about disclosure of audit adjustments and reclassification. In the last paragraph where you state that we recommend that management strengthen internal controls over and oversight over the year-end financial close procedure. I'd like a little clarification on that, and what did you find that made you even enter that?
Yes, that's a kind of a new paragraph we added this year. It's kind of just a reminder to the board that if you were to see, so it doesn't necessarily apply here to your district. It's more of just a reminder that if you do see an excess amount of audit adjustments, typically anything above 5 to 10, depending on the nature of the audit adjustments, is kind of where we get into that area of maybe the books aren't getting closed correctly. But if you see here, we only had 3 entries, one of which was just a reclassing entry, just for financial reporting. So we don't consider that as an adjustment. So overall, we just had 2 audit adjustments. So in my opinion, that's not something to be concerned about, but just a reminder to keep an eye on that each year. And if it becomes more audit adjustments than maybe you're comfortable with, just to kind of discuss with management about the closing process. So again, nothing to be concerned about related to Templeton Community Services District. We just leave it in there more as just a general reminder to the governance.
So you didn't suggest anything that they should change or do?
No, we didn't. When we were there in the spring, we went over conducted our interviews and tested samples for internal controls, and we were pleased with everything we saw.
Okay, thank you very much. Again,
You're welcome.
Your presentation.
Thank you.
Well, also, thank you, Natalie. I know every year you do this. A small thank you to Jeff and Carrie, but the big workhorse here was Natalie, as always.
Thank you. Any other questions?
No.
Going to the public, any questions from the public on the audit report? Okay, come back to the we need a roll. Okay, this is an action item. So if there are no more further comments from the board, then I'll.
So I move that the board accept the audit report for June 30th, 2025 as submitted by Nigro and Nigro.
Second.
Go ahead, roll call.
Cruz Logan,
Aye.
Peterson,
Yes.
Mortensen,
All right.
Tyrone. Yes. And Bardavich.
Aye. And passes. All right, next item is the 2025 fire code amendment. And that's the fire chief. Here it goes.
Good evening. So before you tonight is the 2025 code adoption. And the fire department's recommending that the board adopt the new 2025 California Fire Code. There are really no significant updates. Basically what we've done is made revisions primarily administratively, consisting of renumbering code sections and then realigning existing languages for consistency. That's essentially that portion of the code adoption. With regards to the fireworks ordinance, we have made some changes, and the following amendments are kind of a clarity thing. So we want to identify that we're going to change the sale of fireworks and limited on the time ending on July 4th at 5 p.m. We are going to, we would only allow discharge of fireworks on July 4th from 12 noon to 10 p.m. that evening. And then, we're still trying to, consider a, fireworks booth demonstration, display, carve out. And allow them opportunities, either during the evening or day, where they could demonstrate what some of the fireworks look like. And put that into that section of the fireworks ordinance. So essentially, the 25 fire code adoption is largely administrative in nature, minus the fireworks ordinance, the changes there. No significant impacts, with regards to wildland or anything else that we're seeing or building codes. So staff would like to recommend that the board consider adopting and amending the 2025 edition of the California Fire Code by resolution 19-2025 and introduce ordinance 2025-1 by title and waive the reading. And I'm available for any questions.
Just for clarification, for the false alarm, penalty, so that's that's if happens more than 2 times, that's when the, more than 3, so
Yeah.
like the 3rd time or the 4th time would be,
So they're allowed 3,
okay,
and we would charge them on the 4th time.
okay, and then that, like on a calendar year, per calendar year, so every calendar year it starts over.
Yes, well, so it's kind of a floating scale. So if they have 3 within a, you know,
I
if it
see,
starts.
12-month period.
Yeah, 12-month period.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
But I think it reads calendar year in the
That's what I
ordinance. Yeah, it reads calendar year, not in a 12-month period.
Right, it does read calendar year, but we would assess it within a 12-month period within that calendar year. So if they're within a calendar year and they have more than 3,
But a calendar year is January through December. If it's within a 12-month period, it's a rolling period.
Yeah.
So,
correct. So what we're saying though is if they have 1 in December and then they have 2, you're correct. I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm thinking outside of the calendar year. You're right.
Okay, so it's per calendar.
Per calendar year.
Okay, okay, that's what I thought.
so I don't have questions. I have more comments than anything else.
Okay, let's ask the question first then, please. Any questions on this? Okay, public, any questions or comments? Public on that?
Yeah, we had asked previously about, instead of having the fireworks sales end at 5 o'clock, having it end at 8. How do we get you guys to vote yes or no on that for us?
I guess that would be part
I
of
mean-
the discussion. We'll come back and then we could discuss that. So we could discuss the ending the sale of fireworks at 8. Any other questions or comments?
Question.
Okay.
Going back to the automatic fire sprinklers. So I saw that if an existing building, if there's construction that happens and all the stipulations that then those existing buildings might trigger the requirement, is there no other mechanism to require existing buildings other than construction? In terms of
Okay,
making.
I think I'm following. So you're asking, can we require existing buildings to put fire sprinklers in? No.
Okay.
Yeah, the state fire marshal is pretty clear on that. The fire code's pretty clear on that. Existing non-conforming buildings, we can't just arbitrarily go in. Now, the city of San Luis Obispo tried to do that years ago and it got overturned.
Okay.
So, yeah.
And then, oh wait, I have one. Related to the fireworks edits, was this new language in terms of the requirements for the sale of the fireworks in terms of the organization must have a demonstrated benefit or provide a service? Was that already existing?
Yes. Yes, it was.
And was also must also have 12 members.
Yes.
Okay.
Those provisions were introduced about 2016. So I want to just clarify just procedurally, what's before you tonight. So one, yes, you should discuss the content of the ordinance, and you may make changes as long as they get into the record. They can be part of this in this first reading or this introduction of the ordinance. So if you wish to make tweaks to some of the rules for Safe and Sane as an example, you may. The process tonight will be to consider the resolution. The resolution provides findings that allow you to make Templeton-specific changes to the fire code or requirements within the fire code. The introduction of this ordinance or its first reading by title only and waive the full reading. Of course, we can incorporate any tweaks to the ordinance that you'd like. You'd be scheduling a public hearing for January 20th. At that public hearing, of course, we'll take comments on this. If, as a result of the comments in the public hearing, further changes are requested or desired of the ordinance, that January 20th might again be a first reading. Again, we can't make any material changes at the second reading or at the adoption stage. So this could, if you wish to make changes as a result of the public hearing, it'll trigger kind of a new introduction of the ordinance. And then ultimately, your adoption of the ordinance it pends or is pending the County Board of Supervisors essentially ratifying that decision. So there'll be a period of time likely that the ordinance will be adopted by the district, but not yet in effect because the county board has not taken action. So it's kind of important to think about the timing of this. In the past, it's taken the county 2 to 3 months to get that done. We want to make sure whatever changes you want to make to the fireworks, particularly to the fireworks related matters, are well known by the booth holders before the permits are issued in March, and certainly before they make plans to begin sales and such as the months go on and we get the July 4th holiday. And again, I do want to just highlight a few things that I wanted to make sure we captured. These came from the board's discussion back in early September. So the number of permits and who's eligible for obtaining a permit has not changed. The use of the, section I of this section is changing. It is now stating, and I'll read it so everybody's clear, location of Safe and Sane fireworks. Safe and Sane fireworks may be used within the district's boundaries, but are limited to use only on non-commercial private property with the permission of the owner. Safe and Sane fireworks are not permitted to be discharged in the street, public right-of-way, parking lots, commercial spaces, or any space which is not privately owned. So if this ordinance is passed as written, the park will not be permissible. It actually is technically not permissible amongst the county code already. Sidewalks, streets, the park and ride, school properties, district properties, etc., will not be permissible locations. I also wanted to kind of highlight, and this is the section J1 states that the fireworks sales are from noon to 5 p.m. If that's an area you wish to tweak, it makes sense to do so tonight. Additionally, this is the section that would require, if you wish to accommodate the booth permit holders to light off fireworks at times prior to this, like I think what's happened historically is the evenings before they've lit off fireworks as sort of a sales approach or a demonstration. We would need to add that. We would need to add an exception to this section so that it was not in violation. Those I think were the key items. I also wanted to state that this ordinance would put us in a position to establish a new surcharge in lieu of the permit fee. And that surcharge would be set by resolution at some date in the future, but certainly prior to March, likely over the course of the winter. Once the code's adopted, we would come forward with a budget, and then the permit, the surcharge's limit can be up to 7%. So that's probably the key items. And I would encourage you, if there are items that you see that are drafted here that you'd like to change, it makes more sense to try to change them tonight than later, because it'll ultimately delay the adoption of the code.
Thank you. Okay, so come back, we got the questions from public, yeah, so comments from the board, can you say you have some?
Yeah, I have some comments. So looking at the ordinance, section or chapter 56 under section 5608, E1. It says here the permittee shall deposit a cleanup fee of $500, which will be refunded in whole or part as determined by the district. If the cell location, Templeton Park, and any other areas as determined by the fire code officials at which safe and sane fireworks are used are free and used or free of use and spent fireworks. I would recommend removing Templeton Park from this section. Since Templeton Park is outside of our jurisdiction and Templeton Park is not allowed to have fireworks.
That was actually included back in the day when there was an issue with the amount of fireworks that were being left in the park. And so it was added that the booths and their volunteers would have to come through and clean all that up. And then the fire chief or fire department would go over and inspect.
I think that's
So,
up to the county.
I think we would remove the reference, it still would allow, so
It's your
here, I guess,
discretion.
it would still allow us to assign, the booths to evaluate the park. I don't expect we're gonna receive 100% compliance ever with regard to this ordinance. That's probably not a realistic expectation. And the county has stated they have really no ability to control the park. So because this has been a decades-long pattern, even though we will make it unlawful, we will ask the booth holders to spread the word. There will probably still be people showing up at the park and lighting
I
up
understand, but by
fireworks in the park.
including it, I think it lends itself to the fact that it's okay to light up fireworks in the parks.
Yeah, so you're
And
saying,
I think it's up to your discretion to say, is the area free and clear of fireworks debris before you refund that $500?
yeah, so you're saying eliminate the reference to
Templeton
the
Park.
park.
Yeah, we could just strike Templeton Park
Yeah.
and then I think that it still allows whatever areas to.
Yeah, because typically what we're looking at is the booth areas where they set up the booths and
Yeah.
making sure that those are completely clean.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how I've been doing it in the last 4 or 5 years.
The other is that in the following section, section 2, or II, you've got here where you give examples of where fireworks are not permitted to be discharged. You say street, public right of way, parking lot, commercial spaces, or any space which is not privately owned. It includes parks, but I think we should include the word parks in this. To give an actual example, since historically the behavior has been people lighting them off in the park. And I think we need to be very clear
We
that
could
that's
add-
not permissible.
At the very end there, what if we add something like, and we will take the intent of
Just
your comments and
public
incorporate
parks.
this into your next draft, or the next version, but at the very end, it could say, comma, including parks.
Yeah,
That would
That's
include
fine.
both the district facilities, which we don't typically have a problem with, because we lock them shut that day, but the county park certainly.
the other section is E4. And I'm a little confused on this section because it seems like it's including too many things. It says non-refundable permit fees will be established by resolution of the district's board of directors as permitted by health and safety code, blah, blah, blah. The fee must be paid prior to the issuance of the permit. This amount must be paid prior to the release of the cleanup deposit. Permittees shall submit to the district's general manager an annual report of amounts of cells in a format as designated by the district. So it seems like we're talking about a lot of different things here. We're talking about a deposit which must be paid in advance. And then we're talking about a cleanup deposit. Well, we're talking about a permit fee, a cleanup deposit, and then an annual cells report.
Yeah, let me try to clarify. There is a little cleanup in this section that I think is necessary. The intent here is that the district would adopt a resolution that would set a surcharge in lieu of a permit fee. That would be up to 7%. That's what's permissible under state law. That surcharge is tied to sales, so it can't be, it's unknown until the sales have occurred. I think the intent of this language was to ensure that that 7% or whatever it's established at is paid by the booth holders prior to the district releasing the deposit. And we have a little cleanup in this little section so that it's clear that the permit fee.
Well, it seems like the permit fee seems like it's a permit that's not refundable in my.
Well, this deposit is a separate issue.
Yeah, and then there's the cleanup deposit.
Right, that's a
And then
separate.
it's also saying if we choose to do the 7% surcharge. So there's three different fees.
So the refundable is refundable. It's just, as it says, the permit fee will go away.
But this is a little clumsy in.
It
how
is,
it's
it
worded.
needs some cleaning.
So I'm saying it needs to be cleaned up to really differentiate between those three fees and what they are.
So David Hirsch is joined us via Zoom, and maybe you've got a cleanup to this you can recommend.
No pressure.
No pressure. You know, some of this could be addressed in the resolution that establishes the fee. The timing of the payment, for example, could be in that resolution. So we could eliminate the sentence that says the permit fee must be paid prior to the issuance of the permit, because that gets a little confusing.
Yeah.
Actually, that probably solves the issue. So yes, this ordinance, if adopted, would alter the structure. Right now, we have a fixed fee for booth holders to obtain a permit.
Upfront.
Ahead of time, fixed amount, and that fee would go away, and there would be a surcharge based on sales. And so it's perhaps a more fair way we have some booths that might sell $100,000 worth of products, and some booths that might sell $20,000 worth of product. If the surcharge is tied to the sales volume, then the booths that sell more would pay more of their fair share of the costs of enforcing and educating about the program. So that's how it's envisioned to work. Admittedly, we do not yet have that resolution prepared for you, but that's the intent behind this. The permit fee would go away, the surcharge would take its place, the deposit would be a separate matter altogether, and not tied to a fee, but really to ensure that the community sees the cleanup that we've always had.
But we'd also be eliminating the sentence that says this amount must be paid prior to the release of the cleanup fee.
Yes.
Yeah, that should be eliminated. Okay, if we eliminate that, I think it's a little clearer. And then I have, let's see, and we have yet to define what that annual report will look like.
Yes, we do not know. See, right now, we don't have access to sales records. We're not a sales tax recipient, so we don't get those, but we'll need to require some information so we can determine whether or not what the surcharge amount is per.
Well, we should be able to determine based on gross sales.
But we don't get that, we don't have that information today.
We
Right.
don't, but
We could
I would think
supply
we would
our
be able
state
to
board of
provide it.
equalization sales tax form.
Yes.
Pardon me?
Each booth could turn in their state board of equalization sales tax form that we paid off the sales taxes.
Yeah.
To the district.
And then, let's see, okay, so we are considering the 7% fee or imposing that surcharge. Okay, that, I wanted to verify that.
8% we haven't established.
8%, you want?
8%.
Oh,
we haven't
8%.
established.
I thought you were saying.
Up to
8%.
seven.
Yeah, it's up to 7, but we haven't made that determination.
Yes.
I read the fire report and the minutes said that there was some discussion and there wasn't an agreement on what the amount was. So I didn't know where you all landed on that. Okay.
I think what I envision is that the general manager will be coming back with an analysis of the projected costs and so on, that I'm sure will justify a fee that is in the neighborhood of that 7%.
Okay. And then I have a couple of other comments as well. Under J, violations, 4 and 5. It says under 4, it is unlawful for any person to store any safe and sane fireworks without having in his or her possession a valid permit as required by this ordinance. Well, if I purchase fireworks on July 1st, I'm now in possession of safe and sane fireworks. So the way this reads, it says I can't store them. So, but yet the ordinance says I can't light them off on July 1st either. I have to wait until July 4th. So I understand the intent here is probably looking at people buying large quantities and for resale purposes or sales purposes. But if I'm just an individual purchasing fireworks, this I wouldn't think would apply to me.
We could add after the word fireworks for sale if the intent is just to retail.
Yeah, because I think that's the intent of this, but it doesn't read that way.
Yeah, I think that the issue that was trying to be addressed there was the actual storage of large quantities of fireworks.
Yeah.
In a residence or in a garage.
Which is really more the sellers that you were trying to address. I would
Correct.
assume. Yeah.
Yeah, so that could be, we could clean that up, David.
By adding the words for sale, that would.
Yeah, because, yeah, I think that would do it. It's
Yeah.
really.
Also, or distribution, so people who store large quantities that give them out to all their neighbors who still want it.
Well, it's really the people who we're giving the permits to, right?
Right, but,
Well,
would we run into any issue if we found a violation of somebody storing
well, it's really, yeah.
fireworks in their private residence for sale? That it would conflict with this?
Which really would conflict with the whole ordinance because they have to be permitted to even have them sell.
I understand, but
So,
I'm sorry, I think we've got some conflicting questions. I think item 4 is dealing with somebody possessing fireworks for resale.
which when under this
And then
ordinance
this-
is not permitted
well-
because they don't have a permit.
Well, let me finish if you don't mind. I could just, if we add for sale or distribution after the word fireworks, then it goes on to say without having his or her possession of valid permit. So what it would mean is only the 4 booth holders that have an issued permit could have fireworks stored for sale.
Okay, that would help.
This is existing language, so I defer a little bit to the chief as far as how it's been implemented over time.
yeah,
I don't
well,
think it's my
I think it's
opportunity.
appropriate, but, again, I'm kind of going back to the state code with regards to if somebody were illegally storing safe and sane fireworks, they bought them from another location, brought them into their possession in their garage, we located them. And they didn't buy them from one of our booth holders. Does it give us an issue with being able to charge them? Does it conflict with our current adoption? Does that make sense?
Mhm. There are already other existing provisions in chapter 56 of
That's
the
true.
code
Yeah.
that relate to a lot of these same issues.
So it wouldn't conflict?
I don't think it would.
Okay,
Okay, so you're good with
Yeah.
putting that fireworks for sale?
Yep.
Okay. In both, and I think that needs to be, probably in both, 4 and 5. Yeah, because it's talking about any person to store or possess any safe and sane fireworks, which a license is required. Yeah, there's someone who purchases it, they're gonna store it.
yeah, I just didn't want a conflict
Yeah.
between chapter 56 and our ordinance. That's the biggest
I
issue.
think one of the ideas is like, if you have the intent that you have purchased. You have no intent to distribute, you have no intent to resell. That's fair. Even if you,
Well, I think the intent is, but the way it's written is you would be in violation.
yes, so I mean, specifically when we say for resale or for distribution. Even if you give it away to all your neighbors or storing a whole bunch in at your residence, you'd still want to get a violation.
Mhm. Those are my only comments.
Alright. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna make some comments here because I don't want this discussion to go too much further till just I want to, because I want to make sure, well, we have our attorney here, we could discuss this. So obviously, as you know, we've had several meetings through the Fire Emergency Committee. And as we did more research and more discussions, honestly, I became less comfortable with moving forward with the whole idea of the fireworks. Because in terms of enforcement was becoming more challenging. The sheriff is stating that they're having problems with appeals and things like that, and they've actually lost several of the
Are you
appeals.
talking illegal fireworks?
In general, any citations that were given out.
Okay.
So on top of that, when we discussed the 7%, when we had our first meeting in September during the board meeting, at least I was under the impression that 7% was going to be in addition to the $6,000 that we already collect from the permit fees. However, as our attorney did more research, the 7% was included. So all the 6,000 is included in 7%. So basically what happens is that at the end of after all the costs, expenses have been done with the fireworks, then our general manager and Natalie add up all the numbers, and then they see what the number is, and then they could charge up to 7%. So even if we say 7%, we're not going to be able to get the 7% if the costs are below that. So basically looking at it, so that meant that we were going to lose $6,000 of the permit fees as well. So the net income revenue for us was going to be about $11,000 or so. So based on that, I felt very uncomfortable because I didn't feel like that would be the amount that we could do any robust enforcement, especially the first couple of years is going to be very challenging. So I started a discussion with a TNT representative, and I let him know that I am not comfortable with moving forward. We had several conversations, and I even told him I was prepared to make a suggestion of removing this whole thing from our
The surcharge.
No, removing the whole fireworks safe and sane fireworks ordinance, and basically basically not allow any fireworks in Templeton, any sale of fireworks. However, so we were going back and forth. So however, today, just about 12 o'clock, I received an email from him. So this is what he says. From TNT. So he says that they have, he says that they have a public education plan that they have developed, and they have developed that for City of Salinas, but they're willing to go ahead and tailor that to the individual jurisdiction. So Templeton would have their own individual public education plan, which is going to be substantial. But in my opinion, and I said, this should have been done years ago. Why are you all of a sudden doing it now? But so he realized that was not going to be enough. So he went back. So he basically says, in order to enact your strategy of public education and aggressive enforcement on illegal fireworks, we have identified several important funding mechanisms. One is 7% surcharge on all purchases, which based on last year's sales, including Phantom, so Phantom and TNT, because 3 are run by TNT, 1 by Phantom, that would come to $21,000. So that was what the 7% would have meant last year, $21,000.
Based on their sales last year.
Yes. He's also willing, he's saying that a license fee of $1,500 per group, which would be 4 groups, so it comes to $6,000. Those groups will voluntarily pay those fees. So on top of the 7%, on top of this 21,000, if it's 21,000, the groups are willing to pay the addition another $6,000. So that would make it 27,000. I was still not satisfied. I was not sure about with the uncertainty of the 7%, how much it was going to be. So he came back also, and he says, in addition to those revenue streams, TNT will donate up to $2,500 per group to the district to defray your costs. So that would mean another additional $10,000. So once you add all those up, I think it comes to now, if the 21,000 stays 21,000, so it would be $37,000 plus the education program. And I'm not clear, but he mentioned something about we have also made contact with potential private drone operators to fly enforcement patrols.
Yeah.
However, we would need more time and guidance from the district to be more specific. So I'm not sure if he's also gonna pay for that. That one is not clear. I'm not clear on that. But that being said, I guess I want to go back to our attorney and ask him: is this all going to be allowed? Is this can we legally, if they are willing to donate this money on top of the 7%, is this going to be allowed?
Well, we can, the main thing I can speak to as far as what we can legally require is the 7%. If there are voluntary donations, and the use of the term license fee is a misnomer. It would not be a license fee that the booths would be paying, because we can't impose that. Voluntary donations, the district can accept donations, certainly. How enforceable that would be is questionable, as we know. I mean, if someone voluntarily is going to do something, can we force them to do it? Perhaps down the line, if we had expenditures that was based on reliance on those representations, that there was going to be a donation, maybe there could be some recourse, but that's a little dicey, and I can't guarantee how that would come out. What we legally can require is the 7%, up to 7%.
Up to 7.
Well, the problem with the donation is there's no guarantee that will carry over year after year.
Yeah, so like we would probably have to evaluate this program on an annual basis, and then just to see, because otherwise I'm really uncomfortable just even with the 7%. So I know we have a TNT representative here. So are you aware of this? And you guys talked about it. Have you talked to the booths about this as well? And everybody is on the same page? I just want to see how this works.
Yes, Louis and I spoke about it this morning, and we're all on board with it. We have two of the booths here. Three, actually, Natalie up there.
This is the first I've heard about it right now.
But we've had discussions, and everyone is, I mean, they were assuming they were gonna pay the license fee, what is formally called, leading up to it, so that's kind of, they're used to that, and yeah, I think everyone's on board with it.
So it would no longer be a license fee, it
Correct.
would just be a donation.
Correct.
To them. Okay.
Absolutely.
Good faith in that you're letting us maintain our fundraisers that do so well for our entire community. And our community, aside from the district board needing fee for enforcement, our community relies heavily, our schools, our 4-H programs, the Lions Club, the pool, all these things rely very heavily on these fundraisers that go on. And so getting rid of fireworks would do significant irreparable damage to our community.
Did you want to?
I was just gonna say, with regards to the drones, Mr. Tenney sent me an email on that today. Also, there was no reference to them paying for it or not, but he did have several drone contractors in the vicinity of the Sacramento area. I think it was Sacramento area.
There's someone on the Central Coast as well.
He said they're busy. So, yeah.
So they don't have capacity on the Central Coast.
No, and Overwatch, the aircraft program, they're bringing on 2 more planes, so there might be some availability there. But he's splitting up his time. I just spoke to Chief Fallon from Lompoc, and they're gonna try and get another plane on with that specialty camera and whatnot underneath. But he did indicate that those drones that he just reached out to are available. So that might be.
And then, Chief, and I know you got this email as well, so based on what you see in this email, do you feel comfortable we're gonna be able to have a robust enforcement where we could make sure that we not only, it seems like we'll be able to educate people, but we will have people out there as well where we could, you know, manage the illegal fireworks.
Yeah, I think the education program itself is gonna be significant. I mean, I was looking at ten to $15,000 on educational stuff. If they're taking care of that, and what he sent me with the videos, the PDFs, the signs, everything else that they're willing to throw in there.
What is the scope of the education program?
Media, social media, videos, handouts, flyers, and then signage throughout the community.
And I do want to acknowledge too, is that the committee did send out that notice. So thank you for doing that. Because I think that that's going to be key. It's going to be, you know, continuous education. It's just not a silver bullet here. So it's going to have to be kind of a waterfall of communication ongoing.
Yeah.
And then maybe slapping a few people around to change behavior.
So I mean, if this is all would work out, then I do want to thank TNT and the Boots for basically, in my opinion, for stepping up and, you know, protecting our community. So I appreciate that. So now I feel more comfortable with moving forward with this ordinance. So thank you.
Now, I don't know, now, since you were 7%, we're gonna get at the end of the year, a list of all the cost for all the, cause you're saying education and enforcement, that there'll be a list of like tickets that were given out, anything that was.
No.
No, there won't be, yeah.
There won't be any showing where the money went.
No, we will, for the 7% portion, we will have to
Yeah,
show.
we would develop, our intent is to come forward with a budget of how to spend what we think is something around $20,000. At the time, the board establishes by resolution the surcharge, which is up to 7%. So like presently, we spend that money today with upstaffing. We bring on more people during the 4th of July. That alone will eat significantly into the surcharge revenues. And there were requests to try to increase that upstaffing in the days leading up to the 4th of July. So we'll develop a budget and we'll hope that the TNT commitment for public education meets that component of it. We can focus more on the upstaffing and the overflight, the enforcement, the investment in enforcement.
And then
We also do have a draft administrative civil citation ordinance that's modeled largely on the county's ordinance, because legally we need to stay consistent with their ordinance, that we will anticipate we'll be bringing to the board in the near future, right, Jeff?
Yes.
And then, so the 7%, it won't be coming from the booths, it's basically from the sales. So the customers, the people who purchase the fireworks, they're the one who are paying the 7%. The booths will not be paying 7%.
So, and just understanding the timing, it's going to be, it's going to be based on prior year.
No,
No.
it's based on actual sales. So again, the way this works, the structure of this, and we're getting a little ahead of ourselves because you actually haven't established this fee yet, but the concept is that we would come back with a budget of how the district intends to spend the funds, establish the surcharge rate. Let's for a moment say it's 7%. That's tied to the permits the booths receive. They commit to paying the surcharge. They were at the end of the sales period, they'll report the total amount of sales and calculate the 7%. The district will confirm that, and that would need to be paid to the district.
So the district will be incurring the expense and then we'll look to collect after the fact. So it will be a receivables on our books.
Well, I don't want to be recorded as a receivable, but it will be.
But it is, I mean, because
it can't be paid ahead of time, right?
But that's why the other
Well,
expenses.
because I'm saying because it's not being paid in advance,
Well,
it's
that's
being
fine.
paid
Yeah.
in the rears.
We're
So
gonna-
it becomes a receivables.
It's just like any other tax received, right? Comes after the fact. There's no way that the booth holders would know exactly what that 7% would be until the sales period is concluded.
And then also we're gonna have a guarantee from TNT where they will give us
The money.
some
An
of the money
advance.
that, yes, so that way.
So it'll
we'll
be a
know.
true up at the end.
Yeah.
I'm
Well, addition.
Okay, I'm sorry, I wanna make sure that, just for clarification. Any of the donation money will not be commingled
Yeah,
with the
yeah.
surcharge. That's a fee that will be established by code and implemented by resolution, and charged to the permit holders. Any donations are treated separately. They're, and if TNT is committing to make a donation, it would come into the fire fund. I would not envision that would not be treated as an advance on the
Yeah.
on the
Yeah.
surcharge.
Because it wouldn't go into that calculation.
It's not part of the surcharge, it's above and beyond.
Yes.
So does the ordinance need to be amended to include reference to the 1,500 per vendor?
No.
Where does that, where does,
We cannot.
Yes, because it's a
We-
voluntary
You know,
amount.
so the 1,500 per vendor plus the 2,500 that would be donated per vendor?
No, for TNT.
Oh, okay.
No,
But the donation can change every year.
Because there were two different things you talked about, right? Like, there was a $1,500
Yes.
per,
So the booths are willing to donate that money, continue to donate that money,
From the
and then TNT is willing to donate $2,500 per booth.
okay.
So that would be $10,000. So all this is we cannot mandate it, it's just on a voluntary basis. They realize the significance of enforcement and that's how they want, that's what they wanna do proceed. I'll get to 1 second, just wanna make sure I'm clear on this.
Okay, so, so the only thing that we can legally put in the ordinance
Is
is
the
reference to
surcharge.
either, right now, it's the permit fees, but we're changing it to
7%. The only thing we put in is the up to 7%,
Okay.
which
Yeah,
will be
the-
calculated after.
The ordinance is referencing the statute that allows you to then establish the fee up to 7% we can do that by resolution down the line, which Jeff has indicated he wanted to do at a subsequent meeting.
But if we are saying that we want to approve the ordinance with the understanding of this good faith donation coming, what happens just in the event hypothetically, if this good faith donation does not come and we've already,
We'll have to revisit it next year and then
You don't do it.
you don't do it.
Yeah, I think your recourse at that point is to evaluate whether you want to continue to maintain the program. There's no way to force the booth holders or TNT or anyone to pay beyond the 7%.
but we would then have the ability to revisit and
Yes, yeah, next year we'll do the same time next year, we'll see how everything is gone, and if we wanna continue it then. We'll, or if we don't, then we'll. Okay, go ahead, Amanda.
So as a booth holder, we have no problem paying the good faith 1,500. Because that keeps us rolling, keeps our fundraising going, and it's our community. We don't wanna harm our community. If $1,500 is gonna keep us fundraising and help keep our community safe, then we are fully on board with that particular item. Secondly, back to the 5 o'clock cutoff time for sales. Please remember that one of our absolute high peak sales times is 5 to 8 p.m. on the 4th of July. So if your income, your 7% income is tied to our sales, don't cut yourself short. Let us sell till 8 o'clock. We do thousands of dollars of revenue in that 3-hour window. Let us sell till 8, not 10, fine, but let us sell till at least 8. Because you're going to benefit more money for the district in the end as well. Everybody wins with that.
Sure, did you have a point?
I wanted to go back to Mr. Brilt's, that section where you were adding in the parks, the various different places where you can't.
Oh.
And
You want schools?
Specifically state the school, all school district properties, including the ag farm.
I don't see a problem adding more to the language, if there's schools and schools.
It's already not allowed at the schools, but.
It does.
No, but I think it's kind of a given that says no, it's
Schools
gotta
are
be
public.
private places. But
Right.
some people will say, well, it doesn't mention schools.
It doesn't.
And
And
that's why I said
everything
parks,
else,
because
that's
School
what
is
it
a public property though.
Yes.
Public
Yeah.
properties are identified.
Yeah, if you think, so here, I guess here's the challenge. These very few. I'm virtually certain that very few safe and sane fireworks users consult the district's code at 9 o'clock at night when they're lighting up the fireworks. So I mean, we can add it and that will help with clarity. But it's the intent here is that this is a private property only thing. And if you are doing it anywhere else, sidewalk, street, park, school, you're in violation of the code already, but we can clarify it further.
But isn't that gonna be part of the education material that's also passed out at the time of purchase?
Yes,
Yeah.
Okay.
but it'll also make the enforcement element piece very cut and dry. If you're setting it off at a public property or a school or something like that, you're clearly in violation.
Might I also, excuse me, point out that there's that property at the far end of Main Street that is not owned by the school district, that is wide open and all of
Actually
it.
out of the district.
What's that?
It's out of the district.
It's not in your fire district. So people literally could go there and.
Well, they could not, no, the county prohibits safe and sane everywhere. It's only.
It would be
permissible
Enforced by the sheriff.
Yeah, but people, the general public may not be aware of that. They
Right.
may say, wow, let's just zip right.
Obviously, we're first into that area. That's something that we would go down and cut down pretty quickly.
And
You
I've
probably
asked the
already know
school
where
district.
the hot spots are anyway.
Oh,
So.
I've asked the maintenance and operations director to start, ask him to start working on a plan so that we have our property secured, as well.
Yeah.
I don't know what that's gonna look like yet.
One other item now that you bring up the school is that, Mr. Tinney and I were talking about is, within the public education campaign is approaching the school prior to and doing handouts, to the school to take home, to identify, hey, we're not allowed to do them in the middle of the street anymore. We're not allowed to do them here and there, and it's gotta be on our property and.
I think if we could collaborate on that, that'd be wonderful.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will say, I can remember getting stuff from the state fire marshal, but they'd send it to us like late
Last week,
May.
yeah.
And it's too late for us to get it distributed to the students. So, yeah, if we could get it sooner, that would be great.
Thank you. And I saw one more comment.
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm down 10 years ago asking for this in board meetings, and I'm just wondering, we were asking for literally teeth to give a ticket to somebody who was setting off illegal fireworks 10 years ago. And then now, so that's, I'm kind of wondering, I know why it took, but what it took to get the, when we're doing 7%, I want to be able to tell them that they are going to give a ticket out to someone. Is there going to be a list? Are we going to know how many tickets were given out for illegal fireworks?
Yes.
Is this just going to be I can't give out the
We will
information
report,
on?
we will report, and make publicly available the number of administrative citations, those citations. That program is not necessarily tied to the fire code. It's intended to come back here shortly, but absolutely the intent is to utilize the enforcement tools as further education so we can change the behavior.
It's been 30 years of setting off illegal fireworks. It's not the safe and sane, it's mortars going off all over.
Yeah,
Education has been
we realize that.
letting people, so if I'm telling people that there's an extra 7% on yours so that they want to know that, yes, there's gonna be, because all people cared about for Arroyo Grande was, did you hear that X number of tickets were given out? They don't know that 90% of them were maybe lost in the court or they didn't get a ticket, but they know that, oh, I better watch myself next year because they gave out tickets.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and we're gonna be discussing that at a later point. I mean, the enforcement issue will be coming up. For now, we just wanna set the.
I don't
ordinance.
wanna, just education. We wanna see
It will
some
be,
tickets
yes,
get
it will be, that would be part of it. Giving, yeah, citations will be part of it. Okay, coming back, all right, okay, any other comments? Okay, so I wanna go back from a request that was been made from the public regarding, sale of the fireworks. Right now, we have it in the ordinance five PM, so I just wanna ask the fire chief, do you see a problem with us extending that? Do you, what are the pros and?
From 5 to 8.
Oh, yes, so yeah, extending from 5 to 8, or, I mean, do you see, what are the pros and cons with risk benefits?
Honestly, with everything we're talking about, and I don't think an additional 3 hours is gonna make that big of a difference with regards to, you know, our main element being the illegal stuff. And whether or not somebody's going to follow the law of the safe and sane. 3 additional hours of sales, I don't think it's gonna.
You still be able to do the enforcement necessary along with working with the sheriff?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
I would also think that 8 o'clock at night in the summertime, the sun goes down,
It's
so
just,
as
yeah.
long as it's still light, I would have no problem.
People don't really start doing anything until about 8 o'clock.
Okay, all right. Okay, so do I have a consensus to extend to 8 hours?
Would agree.
I'm okay with leaving it or moving it to 8 o'clock, but I think, cause I think we'll be reevaluating this on an annual basis.
On an annual basis.
Because this has just been such a nuisance to the public. And so I think we've gotta make some incremental changes and see what the results are. And then we'll take it from there, but I agree, 3 hours isn't gonna make a big difference in terms of purchasing. I mean, you can tell people 5 o'clock, but does it really make a difference if it's 8 o'clock?
Okay, all right. Everybody good on that?
Okay, the other issue that we wanted clarity on is in September, you stated that the usage of fireworks would be limited to, right now, people use them, safe and sane fireworks from June 1st through July 1st through July 4th. This ordinance would change that to noon on July 4th to 10 PM on July 4th. There was a question about whether or not there ought to be an exemption for the booth holders to continue to provide the demonstrations. We would need some clarification on that. Right now, the way I read it, it does not provide that exception. If you wish to provide that exception, we need to add it into section J1.
I don't want any demonstrations. People know what fireworks look like. They don't need a demonstration. So it's 4th of July, that's the only time. They're a nuisance. And I think it only encourages those people with the illegal fireworks to come out and let off their illegal
So
fireworks.
the demonstrations by the fire.
This is the booth.
The booth, I
They
know.
wanna sell, So
Are
I
they
think-
demonstrating there at the booths?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
that's where they're doing it?
Yes.
Oh, it's not people in their
No,
homes.
no.
Letting off. Oh, okay, I got it. Okay, I'm okay with it.
Subsection 2 of J
Yeah.
currently addresses demonstrations and in the
that
in
the
the
booth?
context of location, that it can't be within 25 feet of any structure, and spectators are not within 35 feet of the demonstration.
Right,
So implicitly, that's allowing demonstrations.
but timing is
Yeah,
kind of what we're looking at,
to permit that at dates and times other than
like days
noon,
before.
yeah, so
But even with the public though, the public is limited to the 4th of July. We talked about that in a
Yes,
previous.
The public is limited, but it's the
Okay.
booths themselves.
With the booths themselves,
From
which is the
table.
exception you're gonna add.
Yes.
Yeah.
So for example, the TEF
Yeah, I got it.
would do a little display to show what different
Yeah,
fireworks.
that's
did.
fine. So you were just adding the exception would be for
The
the.
booths only,
permitted booths.
yes.
I don't think, does your
We
booth
don't.
do?
We're in a field.
Yeah, so
So
I
my
would,
booth
okay, I wanna.
does
Yeah.
No, because-
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah,
Appreciate
we
it.
tell people QR code and they don't
Okay.
love it, but
Yeah.
but the tradition of the Main Street, the Education Foundation. They do a beautiful display, and especially for those families who, like, especially at this time of year, need Christmas help. They need 4th of July help too. So a lot of families enjoy those shows. And then it does boost sales because they go, oh, I really like what that one does, and then they level up which in the end benefits CSD.
Alright. Thanks.
Okay.
Okay.
Well,
So-
under J1, perhaps it could be, with the exception of demonstrations by fireworks booths, it is unlawful for any person to discharge fireworks at any time outside the hours of 12 p.m. Through 10 p.m. on July 4th. And then the next section talks about locations of the demonstrations.
Yeah, I mean, if there's consensus to make that change, we would
I'm good
recommend
with that.
incorporating
Yes.
it into this first
Yes.
reading.
Yes. Yeah. Okay, consensus. So those are the two items. Okay. Anything else?
I have one question. I'm for having that letter sent out by the committee, but it was my understanding that it had things that were sent out affecting the district had to be approved by the board. And the committee only has 2 members on it. I think we had talked about that.
What are you talking about?
Oh, the letter.
Oh, the mailer?
The mailer,
The communication? What about it?
well, it wasn't approved by the board.
I don't
So-
remember us saying anything had to be approved by the board.
Well, we've talked about that a long time ago, that one person can't talk about anything to the community that the board is doing without approval of the board.
No,
I think
the
that was
board
just-
president can.
That was just basically
It was just-
discussing our current
And I will
ordinance.
send out informational flyers from the fire department on a regular basis, and that's basically kind of what that was.
I think all it mentioned is no fireworks are legal on New Year's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's based
Follow
on-
the rules that are being set by the board of directors.
I mean, I'm all for that, but I was.
Yeah, I believe because we're not changing any rules, we're just
No.
reestablishing what already
No.
exists, and that is just informational.
Okay.
You just wanted my long one to go out.
I want my next door neighbor to stop shooting them off.
Okay. All right, so if there are no more discussions, I think we covered everything, right?
Yes,
Yes,
so
okay.
if you're satisfied with where you
Alright.
land, I would suggest that you could adopt resolution 1925 that hasn't changed at all tonight, as your first step. And maybe we could just take these one at a time.
Okay, all right, so let me go ahead, I'll make a motion to go ahead and adopt resolution number 19-2025. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Directors Bardonish,
Aye.
Mortensen,
Aye.
Logan,
Aye.
Peterson,
Yes,
and Tyrone.
Aye.
Second one,
The second one would be by motion to introduce ordinance number 2025-1 by title only, waiving the full reading and incorporate the various changes that were discussed and we reached consensus on tonight that affected the safe and sane
I mean,
fireworks rules.
we need to say the changes.
I think we have them documented sufficiently.
Okay, I'll make that motion. Okay, I'll make that motion. Do I have a second?
second,
All right, roll call, please.
Directors Bardonish,
Aye.
Peterson,
yes.
Logan,
Aye.
Mortensen,
Aye.
and Tyrone.
Aye.
Okay, third.
We should have the ordinance read by title only too.
Oh, okay, yes. Ordinance read by title, yes.
And so now it'll go for public comment at our.
So yes, the next item is to schedule a public hearing, which the staff will do, but just keep in mind that we will notice the public hearing on a couple of occasions. You will have a public hearing at your next meeting, and you should consider the public's comments before adopting the ordinance, and that may require you to make some further changes, we don't know. If we can get direction from the board to schedule that public hearing, and just, I guess it'd be simplest just do so by motion again.
Okay, I'll make a motion to schedule a public hearing for January 20th, 2026 to consider adoption of the ordinance.
2025
25.
-1.
No, 26. Oh,
Of
You gotta read the
January twenty
ordinance number.
2026. Ordinance 19.
oh, okay, 19/20. Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second.
All right, roll call, please.
Directors Bardonish,
Aye.
Logan,
Aye.
Mortensen,
Aye.
Peterson,
Yes,
and Tyrone.
Aye.
And then finally, a direction to staff to submit the resolution that was just approved. The proposed ordinance, once we incorporate the change that were requested tonight in the document to the county. That needs to be submitted 30 days prior to your consideration of adoption. So we only have a couple of days to pull these changes together and get them off.
So when you make so even though at the public hearing on January 20th, and there's additional public comments that might get adopted, do you go back and amend it and resubmit it to the county?
If that occurs, we will need to do that.
Okay.
So I'll go ahead, make a motion to direct staff to submit resolution number 19-2025, proposed ordinance number 2025-1, all required documentation to the County of San Luis Obispo. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, roll call please.
Directors Fardonish,
Aye.
Mortensen,
Aye.
Hogan,
Aye.
Peterson,
Aye.
and Karen.
Aye.
Okay. All done.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. So with the board's permission, since I believe the general manager only wanted me here for this item, I guess I'll be signing off then.
You're missing all the rest of the fun, David.
Okay, all right, well, thank you guys, appreciate it.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right. Next item is resolution number 20-2025, which is revisions to strategic financial policies, retiree OPEB policy and investment policy.
Yes, good evening. This is an item that was incorporated into your 2025-2028 strategic plan, which was to essentially update our OPEB investment policy. Admittedly, the policy that's in the district's strategic financial policy as it relates to OPEB is clearly out of date and needs some work. The staff's been working on this since this summer, and your admin and finance committee has met twice on this topic. I want to just go over what was discussed at the most recent admin and finance committee and has been incorporated into this item tonight. First, back when we established the OPEB trust, and again, I wanted just for everybody's clarification, prior to 2017, the district, we had district employees that had retired and were on district health care that was district funded. And the district just paid those on a pay-as-you-go basis. Every month the bill came and we paid them out of all the funds that the employee had retired from. But this was a growing cost and a growing liability. And certainly many years ago, GASB required us to try to calculate what that liability was. And it was a growing and concerning figure. In 2017, the district decided to establish what I'll call an OPEB trust. There are several instruments that were available. We happened to choose one that's administered by CalPERS. We have a relationship with CalPERS for health insurance already and pension already, and they're a significant trust holder. By establishing a very limited use trust, it allows investment tools that are not available to the district in general. We have a very strict investment policy. The state law, the government code does not allow you to invest in stocks and mutual funds, your own money. So you've got to be very conservative. But when you establish a very limited use trust for something like this, it allows it to go into more aggressive investment opportunities. And so we chose, at the time, we were just limping into this, had small amounts of money to contribute. And at the time we chose sort of a moderate investment strategy. Strategy 2, there were at the time 3 strategies available. Since that time, we've made 2 significant additional kind of boosts into that account. We had some funds available and put more money into the trust, and the trust had done well for us. And a few years ago, it looked like we had achieved like a 97% funded status. And so we thought, great, we're there. That was our goal. And we began withdrawing funds from the trust the following year. And we've done that 3 years now. Each of the last 2 years, though, the funded status had gone down. Our reported funded status had gone down. So that led us to evaluating some options. The first issue that came up was, does it make sense for us to change from strategy 2, or I'll call the moderate strategy, to strategy 1, which is somewhat more aggressive? It's a PERS strategy. And that was a question that we were asked to answer by the Admin and Finance Committee. And so we did some research with our actuarial team and with CalPERS. And the short answer is, yeah, maybe it makes good sense to adjust the strategy. One, we've got like $3 million in there. We can weather some ups and downs without losing our ability to pay for the retiree healthcare. And over the long run, it should produce better results. And then actuarially, it actually produces, our estimate is about 2% better funded status because they just use an improved discount rate because the assumed rate of return is slightly better. So it actually just by that decision alone would improve our funded status calculation on our actuarial reports. So there's some pros. It increases long-term funded status. Expected long-term funded status could reduce the amount of future contributions into the trust, again, if those improved interest earnings are realized. And it is the most common used strategy amongst California municipalities who participate in this trust. Of course, there are some cons. There is greater investment return risk. It's a more aggressive strategy. And then we probably expect more variation, more volatility. Because it's a more aggressive strategy. But I wanted to kind of.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, make that work.
So are we, is this for going ahead, is this for what we contribute going forward to switching to the strategy or whatever we already have as well?
It would be the current balance in the trust.
Okay, so everything will be moved. Okay.
So I wanted to kind of just illustrate what that looks like. This is from a couple months ago. But this is a report of all of the municipalities who are in the trust. And again, this is the OPEB, the trust. There are 3 strategies. Basically, there are $22 billion in strategy 1, $2.2 billion in strategy 2, the strategy we're in, and then just under $1 billion in strategy 3. So now I don't think it's fair to say that necessarily that means 90% of the folks are interested in strategy 1. That was a strategy that was available earliest, and these 2 more conservative strategies came out later. And so keep that in mind, but it does help me recommend to you that it's a reasonable strategy that a number of municipalities have stuck with or have chosen. Again, just in terms of dollars in the collective trust. Now, there were a number of other issues that we thought are important to consider. One, what we've learned, one of the things that I was frustrated with is that getting these reports and there's all this volatility and it made it very hard to make decisions going forward. And so we spent some time talking to the team or our group that does the actuarial reports that get incorporated in your financial statements. And those really aren't produced for the layperson to read. And they're not really of very much value except for incorporating into the financial statements. They don't really help us with the issue at hand. But the couple of the actuaries on their team helped explain how we should interpret the report and what other information might be available to us. What we were told or what we've learned is we should expect a lot more volatility in the calculations for a number of reasons. One, there's always more volatility in OPEB than pension. It's just a harder calculation to get a handle on. There's unpredictable long-term healthcare costs. They make assumptions about costs, and then the actual costs might be considerably different. And we've been this, I will say, this sort of post-COVID period where we've had higher healthcare increases than were expected in a sort of a longer-term projection. There are swings, obviously, in the investment returns, and then we're a tiny little pool. We only have something like 15 retirees in the plan, so we're very small, and so that by itself leads to more volatility. Our pool is small. The trust is our funds are in a much larger pool, but our own particular reporting is just for our own retirees and future retirees. So we developed these policy points that we've drafted into the strategic financial policy. One would be to change from strategy 2 to strategy 1. 2, to target a funding. We had presently stated that our goal was to be fully funded. What we've learned is we really want to be careful not to become more than 100% funded because the funding is tied up maybe for many, many years. You can't withdraw it other than for the purposes that it was intended. Until such time there is no more liability, and that's not gonna happen for decades. So we want to better define what our target is, and we're suggesting, because of the volatility, that 70 to 95% funded status would be the goal. If the funded status calculation is higher than 95%, then we would withdraw both what's known as the explicit subsidy as well as the implicit subsidy. The explicit subsidy is what we paid for the retirees. The implicit subsidy is the additional cost, that we incur for current employees' healthcare because our retirees are part of the same pool. Health insurance is just more expensive because we allow retirees to be in the pool altogether. And we get those calculations. If funded status falls to between 65 to 70%, we would consider a discretionary contribution to increase the funded status of the next budget cycle. If it falls below 65, we would calculate what it takes to achieve 65% funded status and include that in the budget, in the admin fund. All contributions, withdrawals we made to or from the administration fund, which would impact the other funds indirectly. Item 1, which is the strategy change, would occur during this fiscal year. And then items 3 to 5, which are these sort of thresholds, would occur only once the actuarial report considers the investment tool that we are utilizing. And it's shown in the reporting in the measurement date. Because, when you look at these actuarial reports, they're very lagging. You're looking at data from a couple of years ago by the time you have it available to you. So that was the goals here. And I just did want to point out this is a copy of actuarial report. You're welcome to digest this information. Super helpful if you're trying to fall asleep. But there's a number of reports in here. This is the one that this is the first calculation, the funded status report. We got really concerned that this number was 97% just 3 years ago. Now it's down around 60. But the actuaries were able to discuss with us and say that really for decision-making purposes regarding funding, we ought to be checking out this calculation they used called the funded status using funding discount rate. And it's because this is the rate that this is the calculation they were performing a couple of years ago before we started withdrawing money. And it uses a different discount rate. And that's because of reporting purposes, not necessarily for the district's decision-making purposes. And it shows us being, just about 69.5% funded. This figure would improve about 2% as soon as it recognizes we're in the more aggressive strategy. So you'd have to look at that and say, well, had we been there 6 months ago, this would be 71% or so. And as I mentioned, we get this report. This also includes this calculation of the explicit and implicit subsidy. And this is how this how this works. This is the explicit subsidy, and then also this implicit subsidy. So we could, if we achieve that spot of being more than 95% funded, would be able to withdraw these additional funds to help draw that down. It's permissible under the trust. You can't withdraw just some random amount. You can't say we want to take out $500,000 just because we have too much in there, because once you put it in there, it's kind of locked away. So that's a little overview on this item. We took the time to, I think, draft this information in a sort of a textual form that's included in your staff report and included in the actual update of this financial policies. And we think that they incorporate those previously discussed points. And then there is one further item that staff recommends be included, and that is the district's investment policy. It's tricky to find. And so we would recommend that it be attached, referenced and attached to the strategic financial policy, so it's more available and accessible.
Okay. Thank you very much. Any questions for General Manager regarding this resolution?
Nope, not here.
Thank you, that's actually exactly.
Well,
We're on the
Chelsea
committee,
and I.
we're on the committee, so.
We're on the committee.
Good job,
So we've already made this recommendation.
good job. Any questions from the public? No, nothing here, okay.
I do have a question. Do we know what kind of investments they make?
Yes. So we know what asset class they make the investments in. So that is what you get in the treasurer's report. It includes that, I believe.
Yes, it does.
So
So
it-
right now, we report on strategy 2, which lists the investment tools. There's actually not that big of a difference. There's more global equities and a few other changes, but the mix of investments is just somewhat tweaked to a more aggressive strategy, more aggressive.
Probably less bond.
And the reason I'm asking this is a number of years ago, the state in their infinite wisdom put $78 billion into green funds, and of that 78 million, they lost over 80% of it. And I'm not a fan of the state, so I guess my question is, that would be a big loss for this fund if they're doing, I don't know if they're investing with PERS or on their own, but PERS really hasn't changed, and they're still making these investments that they probably shouldn't be making.
Well, the asset classes, you can see what they're putting the funds in. And so they're the same in strategy 1 and strategy 2 and strategy 3. It's just how what percent goes into each of those.
Well, I
asset
understand that, but
classes.
after I heard that, I was curious.
This is managed by PERS. And, yeah, and our
That's
funds
not a
are,
plus.
well, that's where we're at. You know, you could choose to move the trust to another instrument. There are other programs that offer these trusts. That would require, further evaluation.
Yeah.
I'm all in favor of this, but I'm just curious on.
Well, I think the good thing is it's something we look at each month in our treasurer's report. We're seeing how the investment is doing. So that's reported. Plus annually, we're going to get this actuarial report as well to say how we're funding this. But one thing, because you did have it as a con in terms of volatility, we may see more. But this is a long-term investment, so you would expect that over time that there would be volatility, but in the long run, we're expecting to gain an additional 2% by moving to strategy 1. And it's something we can, if we find that strategy 1, we shouldn't do this, we can alter that at any time. Correct?
Yes. Well, I mean, the board would have to take action.
Yeah, but it can be done at any
Not
time.
This is
But
a
I
15-year.
think this is kind of a long-term, we're not day traders or short-term investors, this is long-term. So I'm comfortable with it.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're in a different position than we were initially when we were just starting off with a couple $100,000 and looking to see it grow and really concerned about losing that value. Now we've got something like 15 years worth of current value costs already saved up. And so we know we can cash flow it even through some tougher periods, as long as in the long run, it does at least as well as strategy 2 or better.
It makes sense to me, especially if it's gonna improve the rating a little bit.
It does, every little bit does.
Any other comments? Okay, so I'll go ahead and entertain them. Oh,
Public?
I already did the public.
Oh,
I came back.
you guys didn't have any questions on this?
You're all excited to read the actuarial report.
It's just riveting, right?
I've got them all on here.
Calculating.
So then I'll entertain a motion on this item.
I'll make a motion that the board adopt resolution 20-025, updating the strategic financial policy.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Directors Logan,
Aye.
Peterson,
Yes.
Mortensen,
Yay.
Tyrone,
Yes.
and Fredonish.
Aye. Okay, so passed 4-1. Next item is board reorganization.
I'd be.
Do say, and then I'll do that.
Okay.
Okay, so this is your opportunity to select amongst yourselves a new or the board president for the next year, and as well as the board vice president. The staff report outlines the duties of both roles. Essentially, The president calls the meeting to order at a time, announces business coming before the board, enforces the board's policies, recognizes persons who desire to speak, and protect the speaker from, who has the floor, from disturbance or interference, explains what the effect of a motion is, restrict discussion of the question when a motion is before the board, rule on parliamentary procedure, put motions to a vote, clearly state the results of the vote. There are a number of other responsibilities, signing documents and appointing and disbanding committees, appointing members to internal standing committees and other external committees that has representation on, call special meetings as needed, coordinates the preparation of the agenda, confer with the general manager as needed crucial matters which may occur between meetings, be the recipient of complaints brought against the general manager, be responsible for coordinating, deliver the board's annual performance evaluation of the general manager, be responsible for the orderly conduct of all board meetings, be the spokesperson for the board, and perform other duties authorized by the board. And then the vice president, of course, assumes those duties when the board president is not available. The process that you've utilized previously is that the clerk will open nominations for the office of president. Any person may nominate themselves or another board member for the office of president. They may nominate more than one person. Nominations may occur until such time as there are no more nominations, and then there are votes taken in alphabetical order. And we continue to take votes until there's a majority that would select the board president if necessary. And then once the president is seated, he or she would conduct the election for the board vice president.
Thank you.
So we will open nominations for board president.
I would encourage you to take any comments from the public before you actually start the vote process.
All right, any public comments on the procedure? Okay, great, nothing on Zoom, all right, coming back, go ahead.
Do we have any nominations for president?
Nominate for election.
Okay. Okay, do we have any other nominations?
I was gonna nominate Eric or Chelsea. And the reason being is because Wayne, Naveed, and I have all served as board president before. And you two are new. And I think at some point, you know, our general manager has assisted, I think, the board president on numerous occasions, and has been a tremendous help. And my fear is that before we have people who have never served as board president, Jeff may end up retiring and may not have the opportunity. But I do want to thank you for serving as board president, because I think you've done an excellent job. But I think it's an opportunity to look at some succession planning and getting some other people to have some experience while our general manager is still here. Hopefully you'll still be here for the next year.
Go ahead.
I think you have done a great job. Better, if not good, if not better than the last two. But the three of us have each done this for 3 years. I was going to nominate Chelsea. And for the same reasons that Debbie had talked about. I'm concerned that the organizations that have the same person leading forever, the other people don't have the experience of, I mean, I think Cambria, they mandate in their procedures that changes every year. I'm not sure that's good either, but I think we've had the same leadership. Well, in the last 9 years, we've only had 3 presidents, I'll put it that way. And it got better every year, from me to Debbie to Naveed. And again, I think you have done a fantastic job.
Jeff English. Yeah, I've done it 2 times, and I think you guys done it. And I agree with everything you say in terms of new leadership. I mean, I don't know if you guys are comfortable, but definitely, at least I was hoping that one of you guys at least be, you know, a vice chair, and then that way prepare for next level. And if I'm the president, I would be working with you to try to basically, you know, go over everything, because there are a lot of things and there's a lot of time. So it's totally up to you.
I think there's time though to make a change, because you've had it for 2 consecutive years.
So I would definitely recommend Joseph for vice president. I think my time obligations I have for my current employment is severe. It's 60 hours a week. So with that, I wouldn't be able to provide the dedication that I'd have for.
So you want to withdraw your name?
I would withdraw.
And then what would you like?
I would also, well, I would like to decline the nomination for president. I just feel like, I would like more of an opportunity to learn sort of like the procedural aspect before taking on that responsibility in terms of being the actual president.
Are you willing to do vice chair?
Yes.
And I wish.
But so yeah, well, so I reiterate my support for Naveed to continue.
You know, it's no different than sitting over there than sitting here.
When you sit there, though, you can go like this. All right,
I'm fine with that. I mean, so if you want to switch seats with me, that's fine. But I do think that we need to kind of have that as the goal.
Absolutely.
Because, you know, you're on your third term, I'm on my third term, you're on your fourth term. And at some point, we need to have people step up and be, you know, and I think, again, it's an opportunity to work directly with the general manager in that role. And I can't, you know, emphasize that as enough.
Well,
Because
I'm
there's a lot
hoping that
that.
this is locking Jeff in for another.
Only if he's working, making a change.
I don't know how you feel about being part of the vote, but.
Well, the other thing to think about too is that we have a really good operating board at this point in time. And that's not always been the case. And that has presented some significant challenges for the board president. But you know, I think we have a really good working board right now that functions very collaboratively and collegiately. So I think that there's an opportunity here to gain that experience. So that's why I was making that recommendation. But
I agree with that.
Yeah.
Wholeheartedly. We went through some really bad times as a board and. That's
my hair turned gray.
That's true.
So, I mean, you're welcome to keep discussing this. I do want to just kind of clarify a couple things, just so it's clear for the record. Can we just repeat the nomination for board president? I think there were some nominations made and then some requests to withdraw them, and I just want to know who's formally included.
So there was a nomination for Eric and for Chelsea, but they each have withdrawn their names. So now it's only.
Would the nominee then withdraw that nomination?
I will withdraw my nomination for Kelsey.
Yeah, and I'll withdraw my nomination of Eric. And then we have Naveed, who is willing to continue to serve as board president. So he is the only nomination left.
And then.
The last man
You got
standing.
the short straw.
For president.
Yeah, for president, yeah. So we've got to first go through that before we get to the vice president.
So I will close nominations.
Yeah.
And we'll take a roll call vote for Director Fardonish. So, Directors Fardonish.
Aye.
Logan.
Aye.
Mortensen.
Aye.
Peterson.
Aye.
And Tyrone. Aye. All right, so 5-0, Director Fardonish is.
And you can say 10 years.
Not gonna forget that one, are you? All right, so let's go ahead and take the nomination for vice chair. I'll go ahead and nominate Director.
Director what?
Tyrone.
And I'll
Chelsea.
second.
Chelsea.
You don't second.
Any other nominations?
Do I know?
We're good. All right. Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, so for Director Tyrone for Vice Chair, Directors Fardonish.
Aye.
Logan.
Aye.
Mortensen.
Aye.
Peterson.
Aye.
And Tyrone.
Aye, thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
You're a manager.
Give me that. You're it.
Like this.
Okay, I do have a number of items to note to you, and we'll see if I can read them all. So the first item I wanted to mention is you approved the October treasurer's report. You noticed that we, for the past couple of years, have left most of our cash in a program called California Class. California classes interest rates begin to fall with the rate environment that we're in. So just over the last week, we've opened up a new money market account that's paying a little bit better and moved those investments. It's not yet reflected in the treasurer's report, but I wanted to make you aware of that. It's in excess of $10 million has been moved into a collateralized account. It's allowable under the investment policy that's paying a little bit better. We are in a generally rate declining environment. And so you got a presentation earlier about interest rates. I would not expect to see that continue. The district offices will be closed next Wednesday and Thursday for Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. And then also the following Wednesday afternoon for New Year's Eve and the following Thursday for New Year's Day. Additionally, the recreation office will have a closure on Friday the 26th. We anticipate shutting off water service to a significant section of the Meadowbrook Mobile Home Park on Thursday of this week to replace the meter that has been damaged and not operable. That will affect the residents of at least some and perhaps more of the residents of the Mobile Home Park. We don't have certainty about at what point the impact will be felt. So we've notified all the residents of that planned outage. On December 21st, that's this coming Sunday at 4:30, the Santa Parade will take place. That's become something that many residents look forward to. Santa looks at me and says, "Don't come sit on my lap."
Now, will that take place even if it's raining?
Yeah.
Okay. I know rain's expected next week.
Well, I say that, I would have to check with Santa,
Santa.
but it's kind of like the postman, rain or shine, sleet or snow.
Like the US
Yeah.
Postal Service.
We had the final 3 parties on the water wait list were issued notifications of water availability today. There is technically no more wait. We don't know if they'll accept those units yet or not, but they've all been offered the full amount that they requested.
Wow.
Have you contacted the next board member about that?
Been too long.
So yeah, that's like 40 years.
That's crazy.
And then I will be gone at the end of this on Friday and then all of next week out of town visiting family.
New baby.
So yes.
Thank you.
That's all I have.
All right. Thank you. Well, General Manager, I just want to sincerely on behalf of the board, thank you for your leadership and, and doing what you did with the water units along with Justin. I mean, as you said, 40 years of having wait lists, that's just, to be able to do this, that's just incredible feat. So thank you. And it was your setting up the policy and making sure we stick to that policy and, working with, the formulas and numbers, working with all the, I mean, you've gone through a lot of headache working with all these different customers that were on the wait list. So
well, yeah, our team has, and they've done a good job. And it was very difficult to know, we were very, I always was confident the wait list was a bogus number, but we had no way of knowing whether it was 90% off or 20% off.
We couldn't get through it.
Yeah, you just couldn't make it. So really just particularly the last couple of years with the videos we've been able to really power through that.
Yeah, and it'd just be interesting to see moving forward how this process is going to work, because people can just come up now and get their water. And then maybe we should, I don't know if that would be the facilities committee to look at our relinquishment program now as well.
Yeah, I think there will be a number of, we're going to highlight some areas of the code that might need to be reviewed. Both how the payment plan works and the process, because really we should be able to revert to more of a normal over-the-counter type transaction where somebody doesn't need to secure a unit until they're ready to build.
Yeah.
So yeah, there'll be an opportunity to do some updates, certainly. Right. We won't really know where we land until 30 days passes, because we did, the requests were for 192 units, I believe. So there, if they all get taken, there won't be many left, but that's very unlikely.
Thank you. Great. Any questions for the general manager? No, public general manager questions. Go ahead.
Just a quick question on that. Does that mean that the number of new housing units has decreased then to the point where we're able to serve everybody?
I would say what that means is the district has made a real concerted effort to increase our water supply. And as that's occurred, we've offered water units to those who were waiting for them. But for the most part, people have not accepted it. They've let themselves come off the wait list. And so that meant we were able to offer the next party and the next party and the next party. The wait list was in my mind, an artificial source of development demand. Or a listing that wasn't reliable in terms of the current development demand. Many people had put themselves on the wait list 10, 20, 30 years ago. And so the circumstances have changed and the people have changed and so forth and so on. And the difficulty with doing development in this county is obviously different than it was decades ago.
I'm thinking in terms of new kids coming.
It's schools.
Yeah, well, I would say that we're no longer
No, we're not.
we're no longer the bottleneck. But what we found, really, the district's had hundreds and hundreds of water units that are assigned to parcels for many, many years. Something like more than 800 today, and plus there's units available. So there's been an opportunity for development for many years. They were just tied to parcels that had water units. And now that restriction is gone, but we still don't see a demand for residential development much. I mean, there's some projects out there, but not much that's.
There's not a new Wildwood coming on.
Yes.
Yeah, it's more, I think, the
Well-
hotels that are taking place on Main Street.
There is a 15-unit subdivision going in off of Bennett, so that's
Off of Bennett? Oh, yeah, on the north
Turkey
side.
Ranch in Bennett.
The north side, yeah.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Committee reports, Administration Finance Committee, November 13, 2025. Any questions on that? Public questions? No. Fire and Emergency Management Committee, on November 19, 2025. Any questions on that? Public, okay. TAG.
So let me just mention about TAG. So Chelsea's gonna be going to Thursday's meeting. So, TAG, the board president, Jennifer Jones, has, submitted her resignation effective immediately. So there seems to be some, issues within the TAG board, that is causing, some angst and so there's some real issues there. So it'll be interesting to see what happens on Thursday's meeting, which I will attend. Cheryl informed me she's no longer their TAG school board representative. I was saying.
The timing was perfect.
The best year.
So it's unfortunate because I think Jennifer did an outstanding job and it was very difficult. This is a position that is a volunteer position. There is no compensation. And they really do a tremendous job in looking at very detailed development plans and making sure that they're consistent with kind of the vision and feel here in Templeton, and providing feedback back to the county. So they take their roles very seriously, but there are some issues and hopefully we can get past that because I think it's preventing the board from really serving its purpose and being effective in representing the community. So hopefully that'll get resolved. So that's it on that.
Thank you for sharing. That's really unfortunate. I know it's challenging to be part of a difficult board, and the bottom line though is it just hurts the residents, and hopefully they could see it through and move on and get back to business. I know school board probably had some challenging times too. So you've been, yes.
And they've done that.
Yes, thank you. All right. Activity update reports, engineering, any questions on that? Engineering, public, any questions on the engineering report? No, finance, any questions on the finance? Thank you, Natalie, everything's good. Public, anything? Okay, fire and emergency services, any questions on the report? Okay. Good, thank you. Parks, Recreation and Solid Waste, any questions on the report?
I just have a comment. I just wanted to say that I went to the holiday event and my kids like had a great time. They made ornaments that are on our tree and it really was super well attended. So again, thank you to everybody. Excited to see it repeat next year.
Yeah. Public, any questions? No? Okay, utilities, any questions on utility? No, public? No. And lastly, BKS legislative updates. Any questions on these updates? Anything?
Yeah, so can we talk about some of these updates? I mean, I think the first one, collection of fees, I don't believe that really impacts the district, correct?
When you say the first one, you speak.
It's, the first one is the exceptions for collection of fees. It's the SB 937 primer.
Yeah, I think there's some potential impacts as we deal with things like people self-help housing and when we're able to obtain parks and recreation impact fees as an example. The collection may be delayed. There's also some ties to when those get set. They get set at the time of entitlement, which right now we collect a fee that's set at the time of payment. And so it could be that the fee amount we ultimately collect is a little bit lower because the entitlement process can take some time. So
do we need to make any policy changes as a result of this?
we're reviewing it, you know, we just need to be aware of the exemptions, and the developers are certainly aware.
Yeah, well, yeah. Well, that's why I was wondering, because I kind of just glanced over it and I was thinking that this was really more for the planning department and some of the fees that they are collecting and charging. And I wasn't sure how this was really gonna impact us directly. Although it does mention impact fees. And then the CEQA?
Yeah, probably no impact to us.
No impact to us, okay. And then the Brown Act, of course, would impact us.
Yes, but not too badly. We're not a large agency, and so most of the changes in the Brown Act affect these large agencies. I think for special district, they have to serve over like 300,000 people. And so we don't, and we're not close. If that were the case, there are a bunch of new requirements. There were some minor changes. For the most part, we can continue to operate the way you have over the last couple of years with these. Allow for remote participation for exceptions for like caring for somebody else or being ill or being out on district business. And there's always the opportunity for a board member to participate remotely by noticing the old, what I'll call the old rules, the traditional rules. You can be on vacation and participate in a meeting, but we have to notice the meeting at that location. It has to be at a public place, et cetera. So those exemptions still apply. Most of the new rules don't affect small agencies.
Okay, so it's just the first one that could potentially cause some revisions to policies. Okay, thank you.
Thanks. And thank you for sharing this. I know we had asked you previously.
Yeah, I got these, so I'll keep looking. We get a handful a year.
Yeah.
All right. Any public comments on this item? Okay. All right. Bring it back for director's report and or comments.
I attended my first TRF meeting that week.
Oh, wow.
And it was officially sworn in as a member. So that's, so I think now maybe up to 5 members. So it was a good first meeting. They're currently discussing the pros and cons of TRF officially joining the chamber. They've been invited to join the Chamber of Commerce. So they're trying to weigh whether or not the annual fee might merit some better publicity for potential fundraisers. And mostly they're just looking forward to the beer run again in May.
Would that change TRF's status?
No, there are other nonprofits who are also members.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
That's it.
I guess make a comment regarding committee assignments. right? Because for next meeting.
The next meeting, the board president is expected to make committee assignments, so if you have any
Yeah.
instructions you'd like me to relay to the rest of the board, I'd be happy to do so.
Oh, yeah.
Now, you can do so now, or in the, or I can do so
Yeah,
electronically.
just
Send
communicate.
it to the,
Yeah, please communicate with Jeff, you know, in terms
Any
of.
requests?
Yeah, your request, and if, you know, if you don't wanna be part of the committee or, one of the external ones, just let me know, so that way I could honor all.
Somebody has to serve on tag.
Remain where I'm at.
You don't wanna do that?
President should do that.
Yeah, the board president, yeah.
What's one more meeting with all the other ones you have?
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know. Okay, so just please, if you communicate that with Jeff, I would appreciate it, because by next meeting, we gotta get new committees. And then obviously you guys are gonna send out the information for the public. Notice.
We've sent it to our current appointed members. I don't think we're getting an overwhelming number of applicants. We have one. So if you know of somebody who's. If you know of somebody who might be interested or might be a good candidate, please encourage them to apply. I don't think you're gonna end up with an overwhelming number of applicants. And I think for the most part, it's gone well, particularly this year when we've had one person on the committee. You know, we've had good input from those residents.
When are the applications due by?
January 6th, there's
Yeah.
All right, that being said, I think that's it. We are done till our next meeting, January, is it January 20th? Great, all right.
26. All right.
All right, meeting adjourned.